the guilt I would have felt if someone did get hurt.
Daniel Penny is an American hero and deserves to be treated as such.
He came on the train, he was like, yo, I'm looking for food, I'm looking for this shit. Like, he was ready to risk it all, basically. He was like basically, he's gonna tell the people about to hurt somebody. He was out on the floor, he's like, I'm ready to hurt somebody, I'm ready to do this, and he was right here. Like I said, I don't think he did nothing wrong.
And I want you to keep in mind, I am not at all happy that this happened to this man, Jordan Neely, but I do want to talk about this story. And I am happy that even a lot of everyday black people are waking up to the fact that we can't just go based on skin color in either direction.
How can you preach love to racists?
I'm sorry, sir, but I don't think that's love you're preaching.
Then he came in, like, he put like his hand so he could come in, right? Okay. I guess he was pissed or something, but I looked at him, right? And then he started taking off his sweater, dummy hard, and then he threw it. And then he told like everyone that he had like a rough day and that he don't care what happens today. He don't care about going to jail, but that someone's trying to.
Jordan Neely once tried to kidnap a 7YO girl. He beat a 64-year-old man and a 67-year-old woman on separate occasions. The 67-year-old woman had a broken nose and fractured orbital bone from the beating, along with severe damage to the back of her head. Neely had a warrant for his arrest at the time of his death due to that beating. What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. All right, so I wanted to talk about this. Daniel Penny has just been acquitted. If you guys aren't familiar with Daniel Penny is the guy that had to subdue a man on a New York City subway in order to stop him from possibly harming one of the other passengers. But really, what I want to go over in the beginning here is this particular speech that was given by a guy that claims to be the uncle of Jordan Neely. His name is Walter Hawk Newsom, and he's a BLM guy. Like I said, he claims to be Jordan Neely's uncle. I guess that hasn't been confirmed, because that's the way I saw it in the articles that I read, was that he claims to be the uncle. So I think that they were probably specifying that for some reason. Of course, these people want some sort of money out of this situation, but I just want to talk about this speech because I noticed that there are people like this person, Walter Hawk Newsom, who, like I said, is a BLM guy, that really do want to push a particular narrative. And I hate that they try to steer misdirected people of color, in this case black people, which again, I know some people are going to be like, well, you shouldn't be talking about black issues and you should mind your own business. Well, this is an American issue is one thing, and like I've already told you guys, I do mind my business, and when I'm done with that, I mind everybody else's business. In this case, it just happens to pertain to BLM and their ridiculousness. So as an American, I am going to talk about this, and I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from and see that a lot of these people are steering black people in the wrong direction because they're activists, and that's what activists do. Activists don't do anything to help the community in a lot of cases anymore. Nowadays, activists really are egging people on to engage in bad behavior, and that's something I really have a problem with. So let's hear his speech.
How can you preach love to racists? That got Dr. King killed.
This man is nothing like Dr. King. That is a personal hero of mine. So when a person like this invokes the name of Dr. King, I do have a problem with that, because I feel like, keep Dr. King out of your mouth, because you are not at all honoring his legacy right now. You are exploiting his name because you have a particular agenda you're trying to push, and right now this particular man is part of a lawsuit that's strictly for financial gain. Nothing will bring Jordan McNeely back.
How can you promote love to a nation that is built on theft and genocide?
That's right.
Okay, I don't really know what we're talking about there. If you're talking about back in American history as far as slave days and those types of things, I'm tired of being expected to go back there. And I think a lot of us in this country are tired of being expected to go back there, because why don't we work from where we're at now? And I know some people really want to live in that, but a lot of people really want to live in victim mentality. And when you're bringing that up in this particular instance, where where, if you guys aren't familiar with the story, what happened was this guy, Jordan Neely, got on the subway and was very aggressive and scared actual New Yorkers. I don't know if you're familiar with New Yorkers. I don't know if you've been to New York. I've been to New York a couple of times, and what I can tell you is it's so crazy down in the subway that you're just used to a certain hum. And I haven't been to New York a lot, but I've been there enough to know that there's just a certain hum down there of crazy, and people are just used to it. And if you're not from there, like the first couple of times I went, I was definitely like, what is going on right now? But after a while, you just get used to it, and it's kind of just noise. And so you're just like, okay, this is just part of it. And so I'm sure New Yorkers are even more desensitized to just the everyday crazy that happens. So this guy gets on and he's saying threatening things.
Got on the train, he dropped his phone. He's like, I'm ready to hurt anybody. I'm hungry. I'm ready to go back to $100. And dude got up, he saw he was about to hurt somebody, and he got up and he was straight. And he was trying to I don't know. You saw everything on everything? No, you saw everything, okay?
And there are actual testimonies from people that were there in the moment.
He was unbelievably off the charts. He scared the living daylights out of everyone.
That were telling what their account of it was, and if you look at them, they're not what you could call Karens. They are definitely New Yorkers. One of them's a black man, one of them's a black woman, another one's like a Puerto Rican looking woman. So these people are not skittish people, and they felt like they were in danger from the stuff that this guy was saying. And then this Marine, Daniel Penny was his name, who was 24 at the time, gets up and restrains the guy.
The guy with the brown jacket took him to the ground.
Yeah, he took him around and not a hard chokehold, just enough to secure him, and the guy fought. And he kept holding him, all right? And then that's when everybody totally realized what was going on. And I think these guys on drugs.
And everybody was relieved for it. And so maybe he didn't apply the hold correctly, or maybe he did apply too much pressure, but that's something that's gonna happen sometimes when you're restraining somebody.
How did he bring him down to the ground? Like he pick him up and throw him on the ground?
I think he stood up, grabbed him, turned him around, and put him to the ground.
And the guy, Jordan Neely, had some other medical conditions like sickle cell and results of his schizophrenia, and also synthetic MJ, wacky tobacco type. I don't know if he had taken it in a pill form or what it was, but he had other factors going on. And when paramedics got there, he did still have a pulse.
You got a pulse or no? I feel a pulse. You feel a pulse? You keep breathing, right?
Try it on the wrist. Try it on the wrist. This one?
You got a pulse. You got a pulse.
And there were people that were telling Daniel Penny to go ahead and let the pressure off. But I don't know if you guys have ever had to subdue somebody before. I have, but just once. I'm not acting like that guy. I just happen to, you know, every once in a while you end up in a fight or flight and you end up finding it in yourself to do what you have to do. And, you know, I'm not going to act like I'm the weakest guy in the world. But when you have these people and this guy gets this particular feeling, the Marine,
If he did do what he was threatening to do, would never be able to live with myself. And I'll take 1 million court appearances and people calling me names and people hating me just to keep one of those people from getting hurt or killed.
gets this particular feeling and he jumps in to help out in the situation. To me, that's what a person like that is supposed to do. If people are in danger and you are trained, I think that you have a duty to do something. Before we go any further, I'm just going to ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. We're on our way to 100,000 subscribers. We're making good progress, so do your part and please do hit the subscribe button. Check the bell and make sure all your notifications are on. Also, like I said, comment and like because it really does help me on the algorithm.
What we preach is unity. Black unity.
Okay, I have no problem with black unity, but what I would say is this guy looks like a pretty big guy. Why doesn't he take it upon himself to patrol the subways? Why don't you, as the leaders of your community, when it comes to BLM people, why don't you police your own a little more? And why don't you stop encouraging bad behavior and making people think that they have these constant enemies in the form of people of other races when that is not the world we currently live in? If this were the world we lived in, I would be the first to call it out, because obviously I would be negatively affected by that. Me, as a brown man with a lot of tattoos and a lot of piercings, do I every once in a while deal with people's prejudices? Yeah, of course. And I've talked about that before too. But is it really based on race, or is it based on the fact that I look kind of crazy? I look like I've been to prison. Is it fair for people to judge me that way? Not necessarily, but at the same time, can people help what their first instinct is when they see something that looks like it might be a little off to them? I would never encourage anybody to do that. I encourage people to stay alert, stay aware, make sure you're taking care of yourself, pay attention to your surroundings. That's what I encourage people to do, because you never know who is what, especially if you're a more vulnerable type of person, like a young woman, an older lady, an old man. We all know there's certain groups that are just a little more vulnerable in society. So if a person has to give me a side eye because they're not sure what's going on and they just have to stay aware of everything that's around them because they could be in a different position than a lot of us able-bodied are, I'm not going to fault anybody for that. And so if you want to preach this thing about black unity, then also be there when your people aren't doing right, and you stand up and get in the way. If you don't want a white man to handle it, I'm fine with that. But why don't you assign some black men to handle it instead? Why don't you encourage the BLM movement people and the black activists to police their own, to de-escalate the situation? Even if you have to train them, use some of the funding that they bought all those houses with, the Black Lives Matter money that just went missing. Well, didn't really go missing. They know where it went. It went into property. It went into luxury goods. I did a whole story about it before. Use some of that money to employ some people and train some people, and then you police your own and nobody else has to worry about it.
Stop begging this system to justify our lives. Stop begging this system for justice. When things happen to you, you step up and defend yourself.
Okay, I don't really know if that's the best idea, because I'm pretty sure that Jordan Neely, while he was in that restraining hold, was trying to defend himself on some level. And that's part of why the hold had to be held for so long, is because he had attempted a couple of times to get free. And when somebody tries to get free and you have them in a restraining hold, you have to apply more pressure. And so really, what I would encourage people to do is, when you're in the wrong and maybe you're a little bit out of it, to maybe tap out. Maybe let somebody know that you're not a threat. Maybe apologize. And I know all of this sounds ridiculous, but really, I've seen that kind of stuff happen in real life before, where people have caught their bearings and just been like, yeah, I was messing up, and they realize that they're overpowered, and they realize that they're not going to be able to flip out in this situation. And this may not have been possible because one of the doctors that had treated Jordan Neely said that as far as his schizophrenia went, it was one of the worst cases that they had ever seen. An actual expert that says that it's one of the worst cases that they've ever seen. And so me asking that may not have been possible, but this guy giving this advice to more stable-minded people, telling them that this is a good course of action to fight, I could be crazy, and let me know in the comments, but I really do think that that is bad advice. How about every once in a while, we just admit that maybe we were having a bad day, maybe we did let it spiral out of control, and help ourselves in mitigating the damage that we could have possibly caused to our own lives or the lives of others.
Just like everybody else seeks justice on their own, just like everybody else has vigilantes?
I'm in the world a lot, you guys. And I've seen a lot of things. And I've seen a lot of situations where people have just let things happen. And when I say people, that means me included. Because I didn't know what to do in certain situations. And I felt like I don't really know what my place in this would be. I once reported that I saw somebody pew-pewing outside of the gym that I used to go to in Las Vegas. It was Las Vegas Athletic Club. And because of the way that we're trained to not be a snitch, I really thought 2 and 3 times before I actually called the police. Now, of course, I'm not going to put myself in harm's way, and what would I do anyway against a person that has a firearm when I have no firearm? But my point is, I've seen that kind of stuff happen where it's more physical and not necessarily a weapon involved, and people just end up letting it happen the way that it happens and are like, this isn't my business. So for this person, Daniel Penny, to actually jump into action and do something about that, to me, is heroic. He could have saved a lot of people, but I wouldn't describe him as a vigilante. He was just a person that was there in the moment and did something about it, which most wouldn't.
We need some black vigilantes.
Now we're just getting to crazy town. We need some black vigilantes. Are you serious right now? You're encouraging black people to do vigilante justice? Okay, let's play it your way, Black Lives Matter. Because Black Lives Matter always likes to make it seem like black people are always going to get in trouble no matter what they do. And for a long time, it has been that way. And maybe it is still that way to a certain degree. So let's take it your way. How do you think this would play out if it were a black vigilante doing vigilante justice? Because I personally think vigilante isn't the way to go, and I don't think vigilante was what Daniel Penny was doing. I don't think that he was just trolling the subway systems, hoping to stumble onto somebody doing something so that he could do something about it. Nobody seems to be painting it that way, including the witnesses that were actually there that you already saw were people of color. So I think if that was the energy that he was on, I think that would have been exposed too. So to encourage people to be vigilantes is a completely different thing than just saying stay aware. And I think that a black person doing the same thing that Daniel Penny did when they're in a situation like that where they can be a hero, I think anybody should do that. And I think because of the world we live in currently, right now, I'm not talking about the 60s or any other time, if it had been the same witnesses that had seen the same thing, and it had been a black man that had to subdue this person, Jordan Neely, I think that the result would have been the same as far as people actually taking up for him and being like, no, this isn't the way that it went down. And people came through on the GoFundMe for this guy, Daniel Penny. They raised $3 million for his defense. And luckily, he was able to go home after he posted bail, which his bail was $100,000. His parents had to put up $10,000 of it. And then they had to promised to give the other 90 if he decided to flee. And I'm sure the fact that he was a Marine and the fact that the witnesses had stated that he was trying to help out and they were relieved and it was a heroic moment and that was the way it was seen at the beginning. It was only when the video got posted and people felt a particular way, which is always easy to feel a particular way from home when you're safe. It's easy to second guess what's going on. When we're in the comfort of our own home, watching it on YouTube, that's one thing, as opposed to being in it and having to actually deal with the situation. So I don't think Daniel Penny's intention was for this person to pass away. I think things just got carried away, and that's the way it went down. And that's why I think the acquittal was in order. But vigilante justice, in my opinion, is not the way to go.
People want to jump up and choke us?
I don't think that anybody wanted to jump up and choke him. I think most people's instinct, like I said, is just to mind their own business.
I'm not a confrontational person. I don't really extend myself. I think this type of thing is very uncomfortable. All this attention and limelight is very uncomfortable. And I would prefer without it.
And I think that we should all be thankful that somebody did jump up in this situation.
And kill us for being loud?
It wasn't just for being loud. There were actual threats going on. And when you've got a crazy person and they're threatening, like I said, New Yorkers are used to all of this stuff. This guy, Daniel Penny, wasn't a visitor either. He's a New Yorker, so he's used to it too. And sometimes we all get that feeling where it's like, this person is bad news. This person is trouble. This person is going through something that is more than just the average. So when you have that feeling and you act on it, and then later on find out that that person had been dangerous in different situations, maybe that was your intuition telling you that this person really was a threat and it wasn't just everyday New York crazy. So to make it sound like he was just doing it because the guy was loud and assaulting people's ears, it was noise pollution that he just couldn't handle, to me is a misrepresentation of what was going on according to the witnesses.
How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
I don't really see how this is oppression. I think that the words that are being used right now have been picked for a particular reason and to evoke a particular response. Because if you didn't know, the Black Lives Matter people had been cussing Daniel Penny out every day when he had to show up for court. It was a month-long trial. Also, this guy, Walter, had called Daniel Penny see you next Tuesday when the verdict was announced, and then he had to be escorted out and the family had to be escorted out because they started cussing him out. And I can understand that emotion from the family, but at the same time, even though it's very unfortunate and it would suck to have it happen to somebody from your own family, but this guy Jordan Neely was living homeless on the street, so the family knew themselves that they couldn't manage what he was going through. And it's unfortunate that people are in this state and that a person's mental health can get this bad. But if you know anything about people that suffer from mental health issues, in some cases, they just will not take their meds. And then when they do start taking their meds and their meds start working, this is one of the biggest problems with people with mental illness. And I say this from dealing with a lot of people with mental illness, but if you know anything about it, one of the biggest problems with mental illness is people will start taking their meds and then they'll get on a good stride and they'll start thinking that they're fixed, so they no longer have to take their meds, or their meds have certain side effects that do make them feel dulled, not as alive anymore, different effects that their meds have on their bodies, and they'll stop taking their meds. And then they'll think they're going to be okay, and sometimes it's even worse than the time before. So that's the struggle some people do have with mental illness. So if this guy's family couldn't even handle him, I don't know why they expect the rest of the world to. And sometimes you have to understand that even though you've known this person since they were a baby and you see them as a non-threat and they've been a member of your family since they were born, the rest of us don't feel that way. It's almost like people that own, and I'm not comparing people to dogs, but at the same time, it's just a good comparison. But it's like, you know, sometimes people will have pit bulls or like a Cane Corso or a really intimidating dog, and they'll try to just let that dog loose around you or your little dog or one of the kids in your family, and you're like, I don't trust that dog. And they're like, that's my baby. I love him. He knows how to behave around. And you're like, no, I am not comfortable. I get that that's your baby and I get that he would never do anything to you, but that doesn't mean I trust him with me and mine. And so this is that kind of situation to a certain degree. Like, yeah, you can say he's your family and let's take you at your word and say he's your nephew. So you feel a particular way about him and you feel like he's a non-threat, but you weren't there that night on the subway and you don't know what the other passengers felt. And if everybody felt the same thing, it might have been as bad as they thought it was. And it even might have been a him or them type of situation. And better him, the one, than the others.
I'm tired.
Yeah, we're all tired. I'm so tired of hearing that from some of these people. And sometimes they spell it T-I-E-D, like, you know, to let you know how they feel. I'm tired. I'm tired. Shut up. So that was his terrible speech. And then they were trying to encourage people to burn it down, but New York wasn't having it. And I think that even a lot of the protesters are starting to come to their senses and realize I should not ruin my life over this situation. And some people are saying that Daniel Penny is going to have to watch his back for the rest of his life and that people are going to have a target on him. I honestly don't feel that way. I honestly think most people are to the point with these kinds of situations where they're looking at it in a more level-headed way. And like I said, it was not an ideal ending. And I do not celebrate the passing of Jordan Neely in any way at all. I think it's very unfortunate. I feel terrible for his family. But at the same time, I think if you look at it from an unbiased perspective, it wasn't about race. It wasn't a white man that targeted a black man. Daniel Penny himself even said that that was not his intention. He was not trying to unalive him. And he didn't take the stand, but they did use his statements from minutes and hours after the incident happened. And the jury had a couple different ways they could have gone, because originally they started off at one charge, which I believe was second-degree homicide, and then it was downgraded to manslaughter. The first carried 15 years. The manslaughter carried 4 years, and then they just acquitted him altogether. And the judge even had questioned the legality of that at a point, but I guess they ended up finding out that it was legal for it to go down that way, and so that's what ended up happening, and he ended up being acquitted. But like I said, they have filed another case, the family has, so it's going to, I guess, be civil at this point. That's what I would imagine it would have to be, is civil. And so they're still trying to get money, but also some of the jurors were black and Latino, and they heard from over 40 witnesses, and they saw all the evidence. So that would lead me to believe that if they decided for acquittal, which of course would have had to be unanimous, and by all accounts, the judge and the DA really did seem to be trying to push, because Democrats really did see this as one of those things where BLM people were going to feel, and the activists were going to feel like this should have went down a particular way, and people were pulling the justice for Jordan Neely, which justice comes in different forms. That's all I'm going to say as far as that goes. Like I said, I'm not happy about it, but I don't think that it was an unjust result. It was an unfortunate result, but I don't think unjust. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. I am anxious to hear what your feelings are on this particular case. I know sometimes some of you have information I haven't heard. I'm open to hearing all of it. I'm open to people disagreeing. Just try to be respectful is all I ask. I know that sometimes people can get heated. There's no need to call me stupid. I'm not at all trying to be malicious, and I'm definitely not happy this happened. If you want to see another video from me, click either of these links. Outside of that, as always, thank you for watching. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.
They bought into his bullshit.